entering the facility.
The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time is the wrong room. The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina, I just came from this room. Stupid facility temple. There we go. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is inarguably one of the greatest games of all time, and inside of that game was one of the most infamous challenges in all of classic gaming, the dreaded Water Temple. But you couldn't even get into that temple without a very specific item, Link's iron boots. Now, being a millennial myself, I often think about just leaving all this behind and walking straight into the ocean. So I thought today would be a perfect time to test the practicality of these very Ferris feats. Of course, I need to look the part with tunic and boots, so again, I'll be working with Lorne Matesic and Castle Corsetry to make something that is video game accurate.
So let me get this straight. You want to wear tights and weighted boots underwater in a pool for science.
Yeah.
Well, excuse me, Princess Zelda.
It's gonna take Lauren and her team a little while to make my tunic and boots, so let's swim through some science of our own first. Princess, I'm not even part of a kingdom anymore. Wait, this was the... stupid temple.
About 2,000 years ago, the ancient Greek genius known as Archimedes was sitting down for a nice warm bath. As he did so, he exclaimed, "Eureka!" which meant "I found it," and this was apparently the first popular usage of the word. What he was so excited about was this little insight. When he sat down, the displacement of the water, the rising water level in the tub, must be related to the volume of his body. So now Archimedes knew that he could use fluid to get the true volume of any submerged, irregularly shaped object. This was something that just wasn't possible 2,000 years ago. Now, knowing this displacement-volume relationship, this is half of the science we need to science Link's iron boots. Oh, also, he was reportedly so excited about this insight that he ran naked from the tub through the streets of Syracuse. Can you imagine being that excited about anything? You're like, Eureka, I can cook pizza rolls in the air fryer. Ah!
Now, obviously, I'm not curious about whether or not weighted shoes will hold me under the water. Of course they will. Just ask the mob. What I want to know is whether or not there is some balance for Link's iron boots such that it will hold me under the water, but I'll still be able to move around somewhat. So what is that balance going to be? It's going to be all about buoyancy. Think to yourself, why does something float? If something is in the water, the weight of that object will be pulling it downwards towards the center of the earth. And where are the other forces? Well, as the body pushes water out of the way, that water pushes back and inwards from all directions. Now, if you're clever here and look at the lines of force, you see that all the horizontal components of force cancel out, leaving only a vertical force. This is the buoyant force, equal to the weight of the volume of fluid displaced. You know who thought this all up? Yeah, some weird naked yelling guy from Syracuse. Now let's use this exact math to come up with an exact value for our own Link boots. Link is oddly buoyant. He's a fairy boy buoyant buoy boy. Without his iron boots on, in the game he always floats very quickly to the surface with his head and shoulders exposed, kind of like an iceberg. Must be a Hillian body type thing. This means, again, according to Archimedes' principle, that the volume of Link's body under the water pushes an amount of fluid out of the way that is equivalent to his total weight. Therefore, Link's iron boots need to weigh at least as much as Link's head and shoulders worth of water. To my eye, only about 1/5 of Link's volume, his head and shoulders, are floating above the water surface, which means that Link's density is only 4/5 the density of water, the fluid he is in. How can I make a statement like that? Well, if whether or not something floats comes down to mass and volume, then it also necessarily comes down to density, which is the ratio of mass per volume, and whether or not something floats is due to the ratio of densities. For example, if you look at sea ice, it's only about 90% the density of sea water, which is why when you see something like an iceberg, about 10% of it is reliably always floating above the surface of the water. That's a handy little bit of fluid dynamics stat. So to make these ratio of densities get closer to 1 for Link, we need to add an amount of mass to his volume that will make it such that his density is closer to water. Now, using the 1/5 and some average body volumes and doing the math, I figure we need about 16.5 pounds of iron per foot, or 33 total pounds for the iron boots. This is the value we would use, but I'm not nearly as buoyant as Link, and I don't want to die drowning on camera. Let's check on Lauren.
Costume's almost ready, Kyle. Please just don't die in it. It would be really bad for business.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on drowning today, but one more thing along those lines. If I got the... Yep, that's the right room. It has to be. It has to be. A quick note on safety before we begin. First, don't try what you're about to see at home. I'm what you call a science boy. And second of all, I'm not going to be testing these weighted boots at the bottom of this pool behind me like I was at the bottom of the water temple. It's just way too unsafe. So I'm only going to be going a few inches down such that I can always breathe with a simple snorkel. But that begs the question, how far could I go down with a simple snorkel? Couldn't I just have a longer snorkel and go down further like I'm sure you nerds want to see? Well, actually, no. You may have not thought about this, but water is extremely heavy. The further you go down, the more pressure is pushing on your chest. At some depth, it gets so heavy that you cannot inhale and push out and actually breathe against it. So the maximum safe depth and therefore length for a simple snorkel is only about 2 feet. This pressure problem is also why scuba divers use pressurized air to help inflate their lungs against the water, and it's why you can't just use something like an open garden hose and go all the way to the bottom of your pool. Don't try that. I didn't try it. It's not safe. Haha! So here it is, my screen-accurate Ocarina of Time costume, just ready for testing. Woohoo! I'm a little fairy boy. Of course, Lauren and her team did another awesome job. Screen-accurate and tight in all the places I don't want it to be. Perfect. And this is our solution for the iron boots. Like we did for Goku's weighted clothing, instead of trying to fabricate some weird horseshoe thing for a fairy boy, I will be inserting steel weights into oversized Kyle Hillian shoes. We've calculated and crafted this specifically to try and hold me underwater. And remember, boys and girls, safety first. I'm only going a few inches down in that pool with a snorkel, and if anything were to happen to me, I'll just make a signal, and then my adoptive father, Veritasium, will jump in, fully clothed, to save me.
It's so cold! Oh, it's so cold! Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Here we go! Oh, it's so cold!
It totally works. The problem is that once you start walking down a slope, walking back up a slope with very little friction makes it feel extremely dangerous. The Mythbusters had the same problem with this, and they were trying to pedal a bike underwater. Their bike had weight, so it stayed there, but actually getting friction to move, they found it impossible. So as I started going down the slope, I could get down, but getting back up, I think I almost died. Link would have to do what he does in the game, take the boots completely off and float to the surface. I might be in the early stages of hypothermia because the water is like 60 degrees, as would Lake Hylia. Until next time.
Now exiting the facility.
Thank you so much to the very nerdy staff at the facility for the direct and substantial support in the creation of this here video. Today especially, I want to recognize Research Assistant Andorian Thief and Visiting Scholar Doc Farmer. private detective of farms, if you want to join the facility staff, if you want to don a silky white lab coat and join our Discord, get episodes early, get behind the scenes stuff, then you can go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill and join the facility staff today. And hey, if you support us just enough, over 1,300 of you are already doing so, you get your name on RA here each and every week. There's so many. I have literally no idea how I'm going to pass the time. I want you to go home, especially if you're still living with your parents, because they're going to think you're weird if you do this. I want you to go home, and I want you to try to measure the surface area of your bathtub. So it's not going to be a perfect circle, but just get close. Then sit in the bathtub with water in it and measure just how many inches or centimeters, measure how much is displaced. Now, if you multiply the surface area of the bathtub, what it would be, and then you multiply that by that inch or two or what have you, then you will get the accurate volume for your body, just like Archimedes, and then you could run around your house naked and yelling about it. That sounds fun. I'm not causing any trouble. Oh, thanks for watching. I know how many liters I am now. Ah!